have a minute's silence in respect of the death of the Duke of Edinburgh, the Queen's consort. So if you'll all mute yourselves and knock your cameras off for 1 minute. Thank you. It does. We've knocked our cameras off for a minute on the Duke of Edinburgh.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Sorry.
Thank you all very much. If we would reinstate the cameras. Thank you all very much for observing that. Very much appreciated. Next item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Andrew Stevens today, and if I could just do a quick roll call, please, Chair.
Yeah, by all means.
Starting with the panel members, Councillor Chris Holly.
Present.
Councillor Bridget Rowlands.
Present.
Councillor Irene Mann.
Present.
Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Linda James.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Mary Jones.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Paxton Hood-Williams.
Present.
Councillor Peter Black.
Present.
Councillor Philip Downing.
Present.
Councillor Des Thomas.
Present.
And Councillor Peter Jones.
Present.
And our invited officer today, Sarah Lackenby.
Yes, I'm here, present.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone I've not called here today? Okay, thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Second item on the agenda is declarations of personal and prejudicial interest. No? Members, officers? No, fine. The third item is prohibition of whip votes and declarations of party whips. I'm assuming that goes as said. Item 4 is the minutes of the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read through them? Any comments or queries?
No.
Okay. Item 5 is public questions. And Sarah, Emily, we have had none, have we?
No public questions today, no.
Then we go on to item 6, which is the Corporate Complaints Annual Report. Sarah, do you want to give us a brief outline on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll start by just having 4 broad things to say at the beginning. One is we would normally have tried to bring this to you sooner, but COVID has sort of got in the way of us trying to bring it quicker. We would normally, well, previous years we brought it sort of anywhere in the autumn. It's always best to try and bring this when we've had the Ombudsman's annual letter, which usually comes around August, September time. But because of COVID and the wave that happened in the autumn last year, we were unable to bring it. So it is slightly late bringing it to you. And this is the 1920 report as well. So when I do bring the 2021 report, sorry, the figures probably for 2020, as you imagine, will be slightly messed up. We had, especially with the first part of lockdown last year, you know, we had not only was the Ombudsman out of action, but obviously we were out of action for the first few months while we were Some of the staff were diverted onto food banks and other work. So, and there was no complaints coming in at that time. So we will find when I bring the new report, it will be an unusual year when I bring the new report. But in terms of this year, obviously we're a year out of date. Last year at the committee, you did also ask for the actual cost of officers processing FOIs. It does tend to vary with the FOI, and also we would need to ask FOI officers to keep timesheets, which last year did prove quite difficult, again, because of COVID. But we are, I'm working with the Information Governance Unit on this, so we are looking at a way in which we can measure that for you. So although it's not in this report, we'll probably be able to give a rough order of magnitude for the next one. And I'll go into that further when I talk about the FOI SAR EIR appendix. Also, there's new developments just to make you aware of, which obviously aren't in this report, with it being the 1920 report, but just so that you're aware. So we did have, all the complaints team did have ombudsman training in the current year, so I'll obviously be putting that in the new report. We're building a new IT system as well, which I think will be tremendously helpful, not only for the public, making it easy for them to log complaints, FOIs, SARs, but also internal processing so that we can give better, more accurate monitoring of performance, but also help officers. So it's going to have an escalation process in there. So I think it will help us all round in logging, monitoring of everything that we're doing around it. So we're hoping that'll be live in the next few months, and I'll be able to give a further update in the new report with that as well. And we have this year as well reviewed the complaints, policies and procedures just to make sure that they're fit for purpose, in line with the new Public Service Ombudsman Wales Act 2019. There was just some minor tweaks for that. It wasn't a fundamental change needed, but it reflects the best practice that the Ombudsman has put out to local authorities. And as you also, just the final point that you might be aware of, but the new Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021 has got some new reporting requirements around complaints. So I'm working with the monitoring officer on this, and Chair will be in touch with you as well to talk about this in future. So, but I haven't mentioned that any of this report. I just wanted to make you aware that will come in the next report, but just for your awareness. So going back to the actual report itself, there are no major trends of concern to flag, but obviously quite a bit of data, as we usually do in all the appendices. Stage 1 corporate complaints were down compared to 18-19, so we had 1,597, as you'll see in the report, but that's down on 1,676 from the previous year. Stage 2 complaints pretty much the same at 153. But we did get fewer comments and requests for service. We have been talking about this as a team as to why that would be. I don't know why that would be. I don't know whether it's people doing more online. That's only my speculation. There's no fact around that, but it's something that we're looking into to see why that would be. Appendix 2 and 3, you'll see, are the social services for adults and children's. It is, you'll be aware, it's a different process, obviously, for social services complaints and the handling. And we can also engage an independent investigator around those. Both these reports give the reasons for the complaints and the outcomes, but you also see at the end of the appendices a list of some very excellent compliments around the service as well. So for adults, 19% of the complaints were justified or partly justified, which was down on the previous year. And for children's, 25% was justified or partly justified, again, slightly lower than 18-19. Appendix 5, you'll see the FOIs and SARs that we've had. Now, the £10 fee has been removed, so we did anticipate that we would see more. You'll see that actually in the figures there's slightly less than in previous years. However, as a team and talking to the Information Governance Unit, we do think this will still continue to increase in future years. And what we are finding is that the FOIs and SARs are getting increasingly more complicated, probably touching more than one service as well. So it's just something that, again, when we get the new IT system in, we can monitor and get more performance data across those. At the minute, we'd have to go into each individual case and look at it. It'll also enable us to monitor more on the FOI and SAR reviews as well. We have got a very good FOI officer network across the council, across each service, and this year we have systematically been trying to do some training with all the FOI officers as well, refresher training, but also around the FOI reviews as well, so they sort of can review each other's from different services, which I think has helped them as individual officers being able to understand how they need to respond to their own FOIs when they're reviewing somebody else's, which has been very helpful. Appendix 6 you'll see is the RIPA investigations, and that there's been none in that year, and the link as well to the Welsh Language Commissioner report. We obviously report that separately. The Welsh Language Commissioner requires us to publish a report by June each year in terms of activity that we've done in meeting the standards, but also complaints that we've handled via the Commissioner's office, but also any that's come through our own internal complaints procedure. We have adapted the complaints procedure so that it's more explicit about handling Welsh language complaints through the corporate complaints procedure. It was always in there, but it wasn't as explicit, so it's now got a whole section around that. So it's still handled in the same way as other complaints, but it's just more explicitly mentioned. And so generally, as I said at the beginning, no general trends for concern at the moment. Happy to take any questions. If there's anything detailed in the stats I can't answer, I'll take that away and I'll email you separately.
Okay. Phil, you had your hand up from down in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. 3.3 I wanted to come in on the stage 2 at the beginning of the report. Hang on, I go back now.
Did you say 3.3?
Yeah, not the beginning of the report, the introduction. The introduction, 3.3, stage 2 complaints. Yeah. So what is
what page?
Oh, it's got on me 9 of 60. It's introduction right at the beginning.
I can see it. Different compliment is if the
Right,
complaint
yeah.
is dissatisfied. Yeah.
Stage 2 complaints. So of the 153 that went to stage 2, and I did find it now while you were talking, 92 of them went to the Ombudsman. So what does not justified mean? And justified. I was thinking they were not justified because 111 went to the Ombudsman and he didn't justify them. That's what I thought it was, but obviously I thought wrong. So can you explain the 111 and the 42 compared to the 92 that went to the Ombudsman?
Yes, it depends on the nature of the complaint. So sometimes, for example, if a complaint is related to something that's going through the courts, or if something is there's the specific criteria around whether it's a justified complaint. If it's been just trying to think of different examples, but there are specific criteria around whether complaints are justified. There are certain things that we can't handle, and also the Ombudsman wouldn't handle as well. And also sometimes people might put a complaint in where it's a request for service as well. So we always make sure that, for example, have people gone through stage 1 first before they put the stage 2 in. But also it depends on the nature of the complaint. Sometimes we might take it straight to stage 2, depending on the seriousness of the complaint. So there are criteria around justified and not justified, which I can share with you if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anyone else that's got any questions on the report? The one thing I will say is the fact that, because of the pandemic, and we are so far, this report is so old effectively that a lot of the comments in there are going to be superseded by whatever comes in future. So really, what we can say is that thank you very much for the report, but under the current terrible circumstances we have with the pandemic, I think we all understand why it's been so late come in, and the fact that the data is so old, and really now it's just a matter of reporting what's in there, isn't it? And I think Phil's point about the classifications of what things are, basically what's justified, what's not justified. It was a very valid question, and if you could email that to us, and I get Emily to email it to all members then, so that they understand what the justifications are. If members have no more questions, Mary, you've got your hand up.
I've got my hand up as well, Chris.
Yeah, right. Okay, so
Yeah, thank you. It's just
Very
really, it's a general question, actually. It's about communication again. It's there saying about, communication. And I'm wondering if, I mean, obviously this has been over a year of difficulties, but this report, as you said, is an old report. So I'm wondering how we can better communication going forward, because there's still people, as an authority, I don't think we're that good at it yet. We still need to improve. And you said something about a new computer system, IT system. Will that help at all in sort of joining things up so people can actually communicate with each other to get the right communication back to the actual complainant? Hope I've explained that right.
Yes, I hope so, because one of the things that we struggle with, I think, at the moment is that sort of request for service or stage one. It's that informal complaint, really, because ideally we'd want to resolve things as quickly as possible as soon as they occur. I mean, the Ombudsman always has the view that complaints is a good thing. It's a gift. It helps you develop your services. And he likes to see a lot of stage one complaints, because he feels that actually, that's probably a good recollection, a good indicator that people are communicating, I think, as you say, Councillor Jones. I think one of the things that the IT system will do is help us log and track that stage one all the way through to the service area and back to the customer. Because at the minute we haven't got all that log. Things will go into the service, but then we don't necessarily know if the customer has been communicated with, but this will allow us to track and log everything. So I'm hoping, yes, it will help us improve that.
okay. Okay, Mary, Peter Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on page 41, which is the appendix attached to the Ombudsman's appendix. Obviously, it's pleasing that of the 93 complaints that went to the Ombudsman, only 4 went on to early resolution voluntary settlement. I'm just interested, do we have any more details about those 4 cases? Because clearly, we want to learn from those. I appreciate you may not have that with you now, Sarah, but it'd be interesting to see any details you can tell us about that, so we can learn from that as to whether there's any impact on service provision.
Yes, no problem. I'll include that in my information to Emily.
Phil Downing.
Yeah, can I give a hypothetical, well, it's not really hypothetical. If a complaint came in to the council for maladministration, let's say that, it's a good word, I kept in my locker, and it went through stage 1, stage 2, then went to the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman decided there was no maladministration. Is that then the end of the matter, or can the complainant take it anywhere else?
From our perspective, yes, that is the end of the matter. Yes, I mean, I guess it depends on the kind of complaint as to how people then want to pursue things. But yes, generally, in terms of the complaints process, that is the end.
Okay,
The only other outcome is a legal action. Des?
Sorry, Chair, that was just it. There's a judicial review, isn't there, at the end of the day, which is usually too expensive for people to pursue anyway. But that would be the end. I mean, someone can proceed through the legal procedure to the Court of Appeal, I suppose. But you know, that's extreme circumstances, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We are in, if I remember rightly, Des, and I think you may be able to back me up on this, I can only ever remember of 2 that have actually gone into judicial review on the complaint procedure in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years.
Yeah, and as I say, it works out expensive for everyone concerned.
Yeah, and you're not guaranteed the outcome if you spend all that money either. Okay, is there anybody else? Any more questions? No? Well, if that's the case, thank you very much, Sarah, for your for the report. As I say, it's a shame. We're in a terrible state at the moment with this pandemic, and I think everybody understands the delays, etc., and what other people have had to do whilst this has been going on. But thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the work plan for next year. There is some issues around that, which I'm going to be discussing with the chair of the programme committee and also with the finance committee, financial officer, about the reporting of performance and also of the financial positions reporting. As we've seen during this pandemic, it has all been all over the place, the performance, etc., and also finance, as we know, that has been really, again, all over the place. So the work plan that's set out is quite comprehensive in as much as, you know, what we've done in the past couple of years. But what we are looking at is how we can improve it, and what we can do to, you know, bring it in line with the fact that the audit committee has a new responsibilities, and there are more responsibilities on other committees as well under the new legislation coming out from Parliament, from the West, from Cardiff. Des, you got your hand up.
Sorry, that was historical. I should have taken it down.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, thank you. So, as I say, the work plan, you see, we've got the one that is on May the 10th, which is the Welsh Housing Quality Standards Annual Update. At that one, then, we will have a discussion on the topics for the 2021-22 year. We put a couple of things on the bottom of that, and that is review of bylaws. Really what that is about is for people to see what is on the council website where bylaws are. We've had a lot of requests, I've had quite a number of requests from various members with regards to changing bylaws. I think when we come to do that, I think it's important that we get the head of legal services to come along and explain how you change bylaws and how you implement these bylaws, because I think it is very important that people understand how you change them or how you implement them before we start saying that we want to change a few things and increase them. The other item then is the rescheduling of the overview and the commissioning reviews. As you know, they've been carried out for the last 4 or 5 years, and some of them have been very successful, others haven't. And we asked about 2 years ago for an update on how they were performing. Unfortunately, the pandemic has got in the way of everybody actually carrying out quite a lot of these commissioning reviews and the outcome of them. So what they've suggested is that by June of this year, that we have an overview on the outcome of that. The budget process, as I said earlier on, is a question, a discussion that's got to be had with the finance department about the way in which we are as a scrutiny board looking at the data and the financial data that we're given. We always look at it at the end of the cabinet reports, etc., are all issued after they've gone through various stages. Now, if we are scrutinising them, we're historically scrutinising them. We're not scrutinising them before they actually go to cabinet. So that discussion needs to be had, and that applies also to the next item about the action plan on data action plan. Again, this is one. Again, I'm going to have a discussion with Councillor Black, who's chairing the programme committee, about actually how that is going to go forward, because there's some new advice, is possibly the best way of putting it, coming down from Cardiff about how that is going to be discussed. I think that's all that I've got, unless there's any questions. No? Okay, well, thank you all very much for turning up this morning, and again, you know, we have to appreciate the position that our officers and workers are in to produce these reports. It is going to be, because of the pandemic, it has been very difficult. Okay, well, thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Emily, can you stay on for a minute?
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you. Ta-da.